Well, if I asked you to tell me who you are, what would you say? There are probably a lot of ways that we could answer that question. We might start out by giving our names, and then we might say what we do for a living, and then maybe talk about our spouse, our kids if we have any. Might say where we live, might say where we grew up, maybe a few other things like that. But you know, when you really think about it, none of those things are actually who we are. They give facts about us, they give a little pertinent information, but none of that is really who we are. My name is not who I am. My job is not who I am. My wife is not who I am. Where I live, where I grew up, are not who I am. Those things are all relevant, of course. They contribute to some extent to making me who I am, but none of that is who I am. You could know all of those things about me and still not really have a clue who I am. It's probably true about you too. Because it's hard for us to reveal who we really are. There are a lot of times when I don't do it. I reveal more about myself than I used to, but there's still a lot that I don't reveal. I think that's true of a lot of us. We throw out distractions. We put up a wall that we can hide behind. We use, as the old Bruce Springsteen song says, a brilliant disguise. We're hesitant to really be our true, authentic selves. Now, that's not a problem that little kids have, is it? Little kids just are who they are. If they're outgoing, if they're shy, if they're cheerful, if they're sad, whatever they are, they just are who they are. Little kids don't put up a wall to hide behind. They don't use a brilliant disguise. Little kids are their true, authentic selves, whatever that authentic self happens to be. In Matthew chapter 18, verse 3, Jesus said that unless we become like little children, we will never enter the kingdom of heaven. As we look at the ways in which we need to become like little children, I think this is one of them. We need to be willing to be our true, authentic selves, just like children are. How do we lose that, do you think? Things happen to us. We get criticized for being who we are. Sometimes people make fun of us for being who we are. Sometimes people hurt us, whether physically or emotionally, for being who we are. And all of those things, as they happen to us, they teach us something. They teach us that it's risky to be who we truly are. Because we don't like those things that can happen to us. And after we've been criticized a few times for who we are, after we've been made fun of a few times for who we are, after we've been hurt a few times for who we are, we decide that it's just really not worth the risk. And so we put up those walls. We hide. We don't let anybody know who we really are. And you know what the saddest thing of all is? After a while, we stop even letting ourselves know who we really are. We hide from ourselves. We're afraid to be who we are. So we become something that we're not. We put on that brilliant disguise. It seems safer. It seems easier. It seems less risky. And that's sad. It's sad to not be who we are. I think it makes God sad when we are not who we really are. Now, don't take that the wrong way. I'm not saying God gets angry with us. I don't think God punishes us for that. God understands why we do it. God understands the hurt and the pain that we go through. After all, Jesus went through it too. Jesus was criticized. Jesus was made fun of. Jesus was hurt for being who he was. God understands what that's like. God understands why we decide sometimes we just don't want to go through it. But it's still sad. Because God created each one of us to be who we really are. God created us to be who we truly and authentically are. God does not want us to use a brilliant disguise. God created us to be our true, authentic selves. And that is who God wants each one of us to be. In our responsive psalm this morning, Psalm 139, we read, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made." Think about that. You are wonderfully made. God made you, and God thinks you are wonderful. You. Not somebody else. Not some person you think you need to try to be. You. The real you. The authentic you. You, as you, are wonderfully made. The best way we can honor God is if we just are that wonderful person, that real, authentic person that God created each one of us to be. And if you want further proof of how wonderful you are, look at Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. It says, God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female, he created them. You are created in the image of God. Really think about that. You are created in the image of the almighty, holy, righteous God. You. That wonderful person that is your true, authentic self. That person, you, was created in the image of God. Not somebody else. Not some person you think you have to try to be. The real you. The authentic you was created in the image of God. And again, the best way we can honor God is to be that person that God created us to be. Because you see, when we try to be somebody that we're not, what we're really doing is trying to create ourselves. And create ourselves in some image other than the image of God. A lot of times it's in the image of society. And when I say society, I'm not just talking about the world at large, although that can be part of it. Society can be the people around town. Society can be the people who we associate with. Society can be the people at school. Society can be the people at work. A lot of the time, each one of those people has some idea of who and what they think we should be. As we said before, we can get criticized or made fun of or hurt if we don't go along with what that society wants us to be. But if we do go along, what we're doing is creating ourselves in society's image. That's a lot different from being created in God's image. It's a lot worse than being created in God's image. In our reading from Galatians for today, Paul writes about that. He says, am I now trying to win human approval or God's approval? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, Paul says, I would not be a servant of Christ. The only way we can truly win God's approval is if we are who God created us to be. If we are that wonderful, true, authentic person who was created in the image of God. Now, that does not mean we'll be perfect. Only God is perfect. We'll still make plenty of mistakes. There'll still be plenty of times when we mess up. But God won't mind that. God will know that we're doing our best because it will truly be us who's making those mistakes and messing up. The wonderful, true, authentic us. We won't be making mistakes because we're trying to be somebody that we're not. We won't be doing things wrong because we're trying to create ourselves in somebody else's image. We'll be us, ourselves. Little kids have no problem being who they are. And we lose that along the way. We try to become what somebody else wants us to be. But you know, we can never really be happy being who somebody else wants us to be. And we can never really please God by being who somebody else wants us to be. Again, it's not that God's going to punish us for it. It's that God created us to be who we truly are. And God knows the only way we can really be happy is to be who we really are. It seems to me that a lot of our journey as Christians is a journey to try to get back to being who we really are, who God really created us to be. You know, when Wanda and I decided God was calling me to be a pastor, I wondered if that meant that I needed to change who I was. Did that mean that I should stop following sports so much, that I should spend more time in religious ways? Did it mean I should stop listening to my old 70s music and just listen to Christian music? Did it mean I should stop telling bad jokes and be a more serious person? And I thought about that. I really did. I prayed about it a lot. And I decided the answer was no. Because if in fact God was calling me, it meant that God was calling me. As the best me that I can be, of course, but still as me. Because God knows me better than I know myself. God knew what he was getting when he called me. If God had not wanted that, if God wanted somebody else, God would have called somebody else. God called me as me. God wants me to be me. The true, authentic me, created in the image of God. And that's what God wants from you, too. Because God has called each one of you just as much as God has called me. Not to be a pastor necessarily, but God has called each one of you to serve God in some way. That means God is calling you. As you. As the best you that you can be, but still as you. God wants you to be you. The true, authentic you, created in the image of God. So who are you? Think about it. Think about who you really are. And then ask yourself, is that really you? Or is that just a brilliant disguise? Let's put away our disguises. Let's be the wonderful people that God created each one of us to be. Let's be our true, authentic selves, created in the image of God. Because that's the only way we'll ever be truly happy. It's also the only way we'll truly be the people God created us to be. Amen.